Turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to the show. That's Matt behind the camera. I'm Ben. That makes this Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. This week, Matt and I covered a guy named Edward Leedskalnin, who is responsible for building something called Coral Castle. Who is he? Why is it a big deal that he built this thing? Two great questions. First, he's a Latvian immigrant and very wildly eccentric guy. Weird. And you know, it takes a lot for Matt or I to call somebody weird, but this guy, capital W, weird. Secondly, Coral Castle is sort of this art compound made of these gigantic coral blocks. And when I say gigantic, I mean they weigh tons and tons. And he apparently built this thing over 20-something years by himself. So how did this guy build it? Well, if you've seen our series this week, you already know that we answer some of these questions, or we look at some of the claims. We also took a look at something that was surprisingly fascinating to us, which is the great debate over how ancient monuments were made. I mean, the pyramids have been around for a long time, right? And the Sphinx has been around for a very long time. And people still argue about how these were built. And when I say argue, I don't mean, you know, that there's one guy saying there was some secret lost laser guidance or auditory technology, and there was one guy saying pulleys. There are people who are saying, you know, pulleys or ramp systems, but we still don't conclusively know the answers to a lot of these questions. So one of the surprising people we found in the course of our research this week was a guy named W.T. Wallington. This guy is a retiree, a former construction worker, former engineer, who thought up methods to build his own Stonehenge, basically, pretty much by himself. You can check it out on YouTube, and you can see that while his methods are ingenious, the tools that he is using and the principles that he's applying are relatively simple and by no means out of the reach of other earlier civilizations. So we found two things. We found that we can envision a past world where people who came before us are smart enough to build these monuments without outside assistance. We also know that there's so much stuff we still don't know about these cultures. Okay, so that's a recap. Matt, I don't know how you're gonna cut it, but I was rambling. Please cut it down. Let's get to the most exciting part, which we didn't get to cover in the video, which is how weird Edward Leedskalnin actually is. 5 feet tall, like 5'0", 100 pounds, builds this gigantic thing out of tons of coral for a lady who jilted him at the altar back in Latvia. True story. And if you want to see how strange his ideas might be, you can check out not one, not two, but 4 different pamphlets of his online. He supplemented his income during the construction of Coral Castle by selling pamphlets on magnetism and his ideas about politics, which just gonna politely say would be offensive to a lot of people today. That's like the nicest thing I can say about it. But do check it out. As always, thanks so much for watching. Let us know what you think about Edward Leedskalnin, what you think about the idea of this lost technology or lost techniques of construction. And also, let us know where you would like us to start shooting our next videos. We're looking for a new studio. We'd love to hear your ideas about how we should create this. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on TestTube. Let's see, that's a lot of tubes. We're on there though. We're on like all of those. And you can send us an email directly. We are conspiracy@discovery.com. Oh, and one last thing. Any gamers in the audience? Matt and I love video games, and that's what we're covering next week, especially a game you might have heard of before, Polybius.